Many would consider today a day off, but I think you all recognize that today is a day on which we focus on what Dr. King called our beloved communities by giving and by serving. A day in which we reflect on what we can do to make life better for our brothers and sisters. A day in which we pause and consider how life lived with love, compassion, and courage can light the pathway to promote understanding, reconciliation, and social change. It wasn't until I was around your age, around the year 2000, that Virginia began celebrating Martin Luther King Jr.'s day, his birthday, as a separate holiday from Lee Jackson Day. Yes, this state celebrated the holiday of the greatest civil rights leader in our modern history on the same day that it also celebrated two most celebrated Civil War generals who waged war against their country to keep black people in bondage in the South. I can't recall any of Stonewall Jackson's speeches, but I'm sure everyone here knows at least a line or two from Dr. King. I know many of you can remember the words of "I Have a Dream," that speech delivered nearly 55 years ago on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. Part of the dream was that little black boys and little black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers, and that a man will be judged by the content of their character and not by the color of his skin. That dream, that hope, is a reality in some parts of our world, and we've come a long way since 1963, even in the Commonwealth of Virginia. In 1989, Virginia elected its first African-American governor, a native son of this city, of Richmond that is, L. Douglas Wilder. And in November 2016, Richmond, the former capital of the Confederacy, elected the youngest mayor, me, to hold the same office as former Governor Wilder. There is not a day that goes by that I don't marvel at my privilege to stand here before you, because of the past and the opportunities afforded to me by the actions of civil rights legends like Dr. King, and close to home, people like Oliver Hill and Henry Marsh, and the accomplishments of people like Governor Doug Wilder. As Mr. President said earlier, I am a product of kids having kids. My father nor my mother finished high school. My grandmother or my grandfather never finished high school. I did grow up on free and reduced lunch, and although I thought I was living a charmed, privileged life, I do recall my grandmother making those awful decisions between whether we were going to eat or whether we were going to buy clothes. And I would not have the opportunity to stand before you all today if it wasn't for the work of the giants that I mentioned earlier, people like Oliver Hill, people like Dr. King. They paved the path for people like myself to stand up and allow for other voices in our community to be heard. But we still have work to do toward achieving the dream in the city that I govern, to realize our vision to build one Richmond. For me, that is a place where you can live out your God-given talents, regardless of the color of your skin, how much money you may have in your bank account, who you choose to love, who you worship to, and what neighborhood you live in. One Richmond is about everyone working together to create an equality of opportunity that makes our city a better place for everyone who lives there, for everyone. And as a city, we must recognize that we are only as great or only as strong as our weakest neighborhood or our weakest neighbor. And that is why we will be focusing this year on trying to put Dr. King's dream truly into practice by expanding that equality of opportunity in our city. Richmond is the first city in the nation to have an office of community wealth building. And through this office, we will invest more in the workforce training and forge partnerships with 50 organizations to break down barriers of upward mobility and that hold back many of our residents. And working through the education compact that we created earlier this year, we will pursue the dream by investing in improving our public education, both inside the classroom and outside the classroom, investing in good teachers and better school facilities. And we will work with advocates both inside and outside federal, state, and local government to address the needs and concerns of our public housing communities as well. There's no reason why people should be living in dwellings with no heat. We will put money, manpower, and minds to work on facing these challenges, and we will not give up. You know, we're in the January timeframe, which means there have been a lot of, New Year's resolutions. And I know they range from people saying they want to lose weight, they want to exercise more. That's me. I want to exercise a whole lot more than I did the last 6 months. Spend more time with their families, and it goes on and on. But I'd like you all to add one thing to your list. And I asked yourself what you can do and what you will pursue in 2018 to help your family, your community realize Dr. King's dream. You know, I've been reading a book lately outside of the memos and the briefings they provide me. I've been reading a book by an author, Stephen L. Carter, called Integrity. And in it, he makes a reference to Dr. King. And while there are many qualities about Dr. King that exemplify integrity, the one he mentions is that of being steadfast. In other words, the author was highlighting not just Dr. King's principles, but his commitment to his principles and his willingness to see them through, even in the face of great adversity and personal risk. You all have seen the images from years and years ago, black and white, whether it's Selma, other parts of Alabama, of people like Dr. King being injured just for standing up for their basic fundamental rights. He believed in speaking up and speaking out, even as he received death threats. And in the case of the 1955 Montgomery, Alabama bus boycott, saw his house bombed. His children were on the line. His family was on the line. And even in that time, the day prior to him passing away, he implored us as Americans to stay steadfast in his mountaintop speech when he stated, "Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will." And he's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. Even as he was going through all those fearful moments, he was imploring others to stay steadfast in the dream. When the U.S. Supreme Court ordered the buses desegregated and the bus boycott ended a year later, Dr. King drafted a document that I want to pay particular attention to, a document for African Americans entitled Integrated Bus Suggestions. The last suggestion is one I'd like to share with you today. According to your own ability and personality, do not be afraid to experiment with new and creative techniques for achieving reconciliation and social change. I got into public service to be a voice for the voiceless, to do what I could to right the wrongs that I saw and work towards a better future for all. One of the examples of that is when I worked with Governor McAuliffe to restore the rights of nearly 200,000 people here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, changing the face of Virginia, but also impacting the lives of many who have been disenfranchised. Dr. King's example reminds me of the need to be steadfast, to always try to do the right thing, even when it is hard to do the right thing. That is my commitment. That's the commitment I made to the city of Richmond. So I would ask you to ask yourselves today, what is your commitment? What commitment do you make to your fellow man and your fellow woman? Will you speak up and speak out when you see something that needs to be changed? Will you get off the sidelines and get in the arena and be a part of making that social change happen? Will you, as Dr. King wrote, in his integrated bus suggestions, be loving enough to absorb evil and understanding enough to turn an enemy into a friend? Will you be content to talk about the problem or be a part of the solution? These issues were relevant then, and they are just as irrelevant today. Our nation is polarized. You see the images all day long. We are divided by race, politics, national origin, and economic inequality. Dr. King's suggestions, an example in his writings like the integrated bus suggestions, can serve as a beacon to all of us who want to change the narrative, heal the wounds of our division, and promote reconciliation so we can move forward together. Not alone, but together. It's easy to complain about ills and challenges we face. Heck, in Richmond, sometimes it can be a spectator sport. It's much harder to jump in the arena, though, to attempt serious change and stay committed to it for the long term, to stay steadfast. The challenge to create real opportunity, real justice for the next generation will outlast my time in office and may even part of some of the time you all here in this room. But it's very important work. And believe me, it's well worth it. The number of young men and women I see every day when I visit a school in Richmond and the dreams that they may have. Frankly, I think, the cure for AIDS or cancer could be sitting in some of our public housing communities. And for the possibility of their lives and their dreams and their opportunities to be snuffed out by inequality, no one can go to bed with that on their heart and not do a thing. And that's why I've gotten into public service. And that's why I urge the young people here to consider it as well. I know that government has gotten a bad rap for the last few years. Particularly, it feels like we're playing 2016 over and over and over again every single day. But when you see and you're able to look in the eyes of a young person and see their smile, you recognize that there is still some good in this world. And there's a responsibility of all of us to ensure that every dream that any child may have can be achieved. That's what I vow to do, and that is my commitment. And the reason I believe that we can make this happen is because the fact that I see a bunch of young people in this room today, like you, want to engage and not withdraw from the arena. You give me faith. You give me hope. And hope can be very, very contagious. So let us not just remember the past, but go forward today and live as Dr. King told us we should. Let's live courageously, daringly, and lovingly. Thank you very much.